Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. I hope you're all doing well. I will be speaking in English today as I've been asked by Bhai Singh and the Basics team. Today's topic is a little bit different from a topic that I normally take on, which is normally Punjab. But it's been a real blessing. To stand here and present this, I had to go and do my own reading and my own research. And it's been quite a journey. And, you know, they say that these Gursikhs that have lived, one of the best ways to do the Sangat is to read what they've written. And you feel like you're actually doing the Sangat. So I read this book probably around 15, maybe close to 20 years ago. And to prepare for this talk, I decided around 5 days ago to start quickly reading up on it, and it's been quite an amazing journey, and hopefully we can all take something away from this talk today. But when I was reading up on Bhai Randhir Singh, I found some really difficult things that it's hard to talk about certain things. It's hard to explain and to articulate certain things. We've got this new feature thing, which is called Slido. It's something that we're trialing out. It's just so that it's not someone standing at the front always just talking and talking. There's a bit of engagement, and a lot of people don't want to always put their hands up. So they can, it's all anonymous. They can write something on there, or write a word in there, or write a sentence in there, and it comes up live. So first thing I want you to all do, and you're going to think this is a bit different, but I want you to all think of a new color. Think of a color that you've not seen before. Think of a color that is new in your head. Can anyone think of a new color? Go on. Crystal blue. Is that new? Has that ever been seen before by anyone? Maybe it has. Has anyone ever seen the crystal blue before? Yeah? Anyone that's watched Frozen will know what crystal blue is. I've got 2 daughters at home that love Frozen. Anyone can explain and talk about this color that's a new color? Can anyone do that? To be honest, scientifically, there is other colors that exist. I'm a science teacher by profession. I had to bring some science into it. And we can only see visible light. So we can only see that middle section. But that doesn't mean that other magnetic waves or other electromagnetic waves exist. Birds that migrate from one place to the other side of the planet, they don't have a sat-nav. They don't just navigate by directions or a map. They can see the magnetic waves of the Earth, and they can see some of the waves that we can't see. So that doesn't mean that other colors don't exist. There's actually a new scientific research where they are stimulating the retina and some of the rods and cones at the back of the eye so that people can experience new colors and see new colors. Now, those people that see this color, how do they explain that to someone else? Now, I'm going to give you an example. Can I have a volunteer? You don't have to get up. I'm just going to ask you a question. Go on, Benji. Benji, I'm colorblind to the color red. Yeah, I've never seen the color red. I'm not really, I'm just giving you an example. Can you explain to me what the color red looks like?
Picture orange.
Yeah.
Slightly deeper.
It's like orange. A deep orange.
Yeah.
But that just looks like deep orange.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen red.
Picture pink.
Yeah.
And it's just a touch darker. You won't be able to see it.
So a dark pink.
Yeah. Similar to it.
So it's similar to dark pink.
Yeah.
Does that do it justice?
Doesn't do justice, no.
Doesn't, does it? And this is what this talk is about today. We say every single day in Japji Sahib, manne ki gat kahi na jaye, je ko kaha pichhe pachtaye. That one who tries to talk about such things, they find it very hard. They try to articulate, you know, there's 100 here, and what's coming out is like 0.5%, 0.5%. Because Sikhi is not about an explanation. I could come here and talk you outside that door. There's amazing things, there's this, there's that. Sikhi is felt and it's experienced. And those that have experienced, they they can't speak of it. Words can't articulate. And for me to stand here and talk to you about Bhai Randhir Singh and his writings of what he articulated and try to regurgitate that to you is very difficult, because words can only do certain bits, but the justice of the experience is never actually described within words. Think of it like a bottle, and you go up with this empty bottle and you scoop up the ocean. And then to that bottle, you try to explain to that bottle the capacity of the ocean. Whereas its capacity is only 2 liters. Its capacity is framed within that bottle. And it can't understand the capacity and the vastness of the ocean. The only time it can do that is when it realizes it's not the bottle. It actually is the ocean, as is every single one of you. Sab mein jyot, jyot hai soe tiste chanan, sab mein chanan hoy. That jyot, that light is in every single one of you. And when you realize that you're not this body, you're not this person, you weren't born with a name, you were given one. You were before this body. You're going to be after this body. You're not the person that's here. This is just dust that's from this earth that's collected and it'll go back to dust. You're beyond this. Who's looking out of them eyes? Who dies when you die? Everything's still here. And when you start realizing that Atma is Paramatma and our journey is to connect back to that Paramatma, you realize you're not that bottle. And when you realize you're not that bottle, you don't have a capacity anymore. Tu karta, tu hua. Mujh mein rahana hu. You don't have the capacity. And to try to explain that, Guru Sahib talks about it in the Shabad, tu daryao, dana bina, main machli, kaise antal. The fish in water, how's he supposed to explain the limit of the water? For him, for the fish, everything is the water. Tujhte niksi foot mara. Jai jai dekha, tai tu hai, tujhte niksi foot mara. That without you, I'm dead. Without you, I'm nothing. And what does Guru Sahib explain that who WhyGuru is to is this every single swas. And if that swas goes, Pavan is Guru. And if Pavan goes, Akha, Jiva, Visra, there's no life. So understanding and the deep philosophy, the reason I started off here and then go straight into Bhai Sahib and the Jivan, I think it's important to set the foundation of where this talk's going. So understanding that we are the ocean. Now, it's on your phone, you should have had a little notification to say, I'm going to start off here and ask you guys, what do you guys believe are the attributes of a perfect human being? What makes the perfect human being? Just drop a word in. Just one word. So the words that get bigger are the words that majority of the people are writing. So you've got empathy, humility, being humble, kind, compassion, Brahmgyan, patient, godliness, morals, integrity, respect, selfless, truthful. I think these are all values and virtues that we all see, that a person that is humble, that has humility, that has kindness, that is truthful, that stands by the truth, that stands for other, that is compassionate, that is righteous. All these attributes are within that perfect human being. And this is the power of the Sangat. The Sangat collectively has penned out on the board exactly what we feel of what is our collective. And that is Daya, Dharam, Mokam, Himmat, Sahib, Santokh, all these attributes that the Khalsa have, that are within the Khalsa, are there. Calmness, Daya, serving, And I want you to take a mental snapshot of these words. I want you to keep them words while we go through this journey. Because we'll come back to these. We'll come back to these words. Now, understanding who we are, what we are on this journey. Who am I? Am I Gurpreet Singh? Was I born as the name Gurpreet Singh? When I was born, did they say Gurpreet Singh, or did they do a Hukam or did they decide a name? Did they take 6 weeks to decide the name? Yeah, we took ages deciding my daughter's name. So understanding, are we born with a name? Nope, it's given to us. This flesh, where's it come from? This earth, where's it gonna go? Back on the earth. Are we the flesh? No. Are we this body, according to Gurbani? We're not. We're not this body. So understanding, according to Gurbani, Maharaj says, Man, oh mind, man tu jot swarup hai, apna mool pachan. Understand what your origins are. We're all native here. This is not home for us. We're all purane. Maharaj says in Gurbani, ye jag tu hai ka pahad, main sacha mania. That this world is like a cloud, that a mountain that is actually a cloud, and we think that mountain is real, but it's just a cloud. Ye jag tu hai ka pahad, main sacha mania. Maharaj calls this world a char din ka supna. Loads of times in Gurbani. Second question, what's the purpose of life? What is the purpose of life? Why are we here? It's a very important question. Any ideas? Come on, don't be shy. Hanji. To jap naam. Why though? So that's the purpose. The purpose is to reunite with the one. How? By japping naam. Man tan nirmal sat swav. This body is filthy. This soul is full of karma. How do we delete the delete button? We don't want to have loads of good karma, because then next life cycle I'll just be a queen somewhere. I want to get rid of the karma. I want to delete them, documents and documents and documents of words. I want to delete them all. How do we delete them? Who said that? Simran. Hanji. We say, Parya mat papa ke sang o to veh nawe ke rang. It's delete, delete, delete. So understanding, we say, Pai prapat manuk de huriya, gobind milen ki hi tari variya. This is the purpose of our life, to get back to the Creator, to unite back with the One. And once we become pure, Maharaj says, Suraj kiran milaya, jal ka jal hua ram, jyoti jyot rili, sampuran thi aram. So we understand, first question was, who am I? We understand that we're a soul. Second is, what's our purpose in life? Our purpose in life is to create back with the pure light, with the pure energy, with the timeless, with the formless energy, who we know as WhyGuru. How do we achieve this? It's a very important question. We've already mentioned one main thing of how we achieve this. Starts with a N, ends in am. Anyone have any ideas? What? Naam, oh, that's amazing. Well done. How did you get that? Naam. Yes. Naam is the epicenter. The epicenter, the vibration that's vibrating every single proton, neutron, electron, particle. It is the way that the world's universes, earths are spinning to, dancing to, that universal, timeless, is all resounding around that Naam. And what we try to do is to attune, like a radio does, to Guru Sahib. Some people call it background cosmic radiation, some people call it Tuni, some people call it Anhad Shabd. It's that vibration that we are trying to tune into, and that's what our journey is. But Maharaj has given loads of Barney. Every single Hukamnama you'll take, Guru Sahib is telling you about Naam. And Naam isn't just about the name, Naam is about Tyona, it's about the remembering, it's about contemplating, it's about connecting. And that connection could be happen through you sitting there with a mala. Some people do connect by having their arm in their air for 30 years. Some people don't sleep. Some people, they do some kind of tyag. But Guru Sahib taught us the best way is to attune ourselves, our breath, our conscious with Maharaj to make that swasa di mala. Seva. So Guru Sahib didn't say to us just jap naam and don't do anything else. We had a duty to this world. Khalsa, who we are supposed to be, and we're all on a journey to be, has a job for this. We're here to help the world, to serve the world, to serve humanity. So within that, what the seva does is it keeps you lower, it keeps you humble, it keeps you ground. The Naam and Bani is for within. Your personal journey on Naam and Bani is your personal journey. You don't need to go tell anyone kinna Naam japdaya. If you guys know what time I wake up for Amrit Vela, that means I'm failing. If I'm telling you what time I wake up. If I'm advertising ke wo bahut Naam japdaya, or I can sit in a ranswai all night, even though my legs are killing, but I'm only sitting there because I want to show someone else that I can sit here all night. Am I really sitting there because I'm attuned within there? No, I don't need to. We don't need to be showing people what we're doing. We need to be doing what we're doing, and that's our really personal connection and journey to Guru Sahib. But only Guru Sahib needs to know who you are, and what you're trying to do. So seva is very, very important to keep you ground, to understand. If I had Naam and seva, but I didn't have discipline, then the Naam and seva wouldn't stick. If I was like, yeah, I'm going to go jap naam, I'm going to do seva, but I don't have discipline because I've got a gambling habit, then my naam and seva is not going to stick. If I've got naam and seva and the discipline is that, yeah, sometimes I like to go, have a drink now and again, and I like to go have a smoke now and again, my naam and my seva is not going to stick. The discipline is like the fence that keeps the naam and the seva intact, keeps that crop intact. And that's Raat. Guru Sahib says, Raat pyari mujhko, Sikh pyara na hai. He cares about the Raat. So understanding the recap, who am I? What is the purpose of this life? And how do I achieve this? And what are the three key principles that I believe that we revolve around, which is overlapping and have a bigger kind of wider impact on our lives, is Naam, Seva and Raat. Now the big question I was asked around 11 years ago, I remember the exact same spot I was sitting in Pakistan, and a very high caliber Sikh said to me, he goes, "Tenu kida pata ke jehda tera naam japya te bani padi e parwan ho rahi hai?" And I was like, I've never ever asked that question to myself before. I was stumbled. How do I know that I'm on the right track? How do I know what I'm doing is right? And I'd never actually just sat there and self-reflected on that. And I didn't know how to answer it. And this talk is actually based on a conversation I had with him. And he was actually a very close associate of Bhai Sahib, who was a close associate of some of the other Singhs that were very close to Bhai Randhir Singh. So this soch of a Khalsa actually comes from this talk itself. How do I know I'm being accepted? This Shabad, he said to me, Sevak Sikh pujan sab aave. Sab gaave har har uttam bani. Gavya sunaya tinka har thain paave. Jin satgur ki agya sat karmani. He says, if you're accepting Guru's Hukam, then you know that you're being accepted. There'll be other signs. There'll be other signs that Guru Sahib will give you things here and there that you'll understand you're on the right track. But if you're accepting Guru's Hukam, then I started to ask the question. The question was, what is Hukam? Now I want you guys to just drop either a word or a few words in there, or what you believe is Hukam. I want to see what you guys think, because I sat there thinking, Hukam could be loads of things. Command, Guru's will. Acceptance, that's a very good one. Accept Maharaj's will. The play, direction, this moment right now, Guru's command. Guru's lesson. Destiny. Guru's will, acceptance. Okay, I think we're all on the same page. So we all believe that Hukam is what Guru Sahib tells us to do, it's Guru's command. Now there's loads of Hukams in Gurbani. Hukam is not just one Hukam. Guru Sahib talks about love. Maharaj says, what kind of love should you have? Do you have love for your PlayStation? Do you have love for, your family? Do you have love for your loved ones? Maharaj says, what kind of love should you have? Maharaj also talks about Ankahe Ratadaya. Ankahe means love for duality. Maharaj says, Ankahe Ratadaya, Vat Doheli Ram, Paap Kamamadaya, Tera Koi na Veli Ram. If you have love for duality, no one's that love's not going to get you anywhere. It's false love. But Maharaj also says love for Guru Sahib. What kind of love should you have for Guru? मन ऐसा न्यो करो जैसी चात्रिक प्यास, like a chatrika's प्यास, एक बूंद, और जैसी मछली नीर, like a fish that loves the water. Have that kind of प्यास, have that love. महाराज जिस प्यारे से होने हो तिस आगे मर चलिए, that's the kind of love. जो तो प्रेम खिलन का जाओ सिर तार तली गली मेरा, come with your head on your if you have got love for me. That's the love that Guru Sahib talks about. So there's two types of hukams. To not have love for a certain type of thing, and the way we should be loving. Desires. What kind of desires should we have? I remember when I was younger, I used to always think I want a red Ferrari. And then I'm 6 foot, 3 inches, and I tried to fit in a Ferrari once. I was like, yeah, I don't want a Ferrari. My knees were up here. Sometimes we have desires for things that we think, oh, well, I asked Guru Sahib for that. He never gave it to me. Well, I think he knows what's best for us. If I had a Ferrari at the age of 15, I don't think I would have, gone in the right trajectory of life. But sometimes we ask for things and we're like, well, I didn't get that. Sometimes what we ask for actually becomes an omen on us. It's actually what we didn't need and we're begging for. And Guru Sahib gives, Lela. So Mara says, what kind of desires should we have? Mara says, इच्छा पूर्व सर्व सुख दातार ताके वासे काम तेना सो ऐसा हर ध्याइए मेरे जीड़े ते सर्व सुख पावे मेरे मना दा. If you ask for नाम विण तुद होर जे मंगना सिर दुखां के दुख दे नाम संतोखिया उतरे मन की भुख. The भुख Mara says भुखियां भुख ना उतरी जे बन्ना पूरी भी get the whole world's wealth जे बन्ना पूरियां बार सिर ते तल रख दो वो भुख नहीं उतरनी. So Mara says the only thing that's going to quench that book is Naam. So the desires, there's a hukam. We should have been, but at the same time, this Bani that Guru Sahib talks about, Gopal, Tera Arta, and there's a whole Shabad of Guru Sahib's, Kar ki gehan changi, janata na leve mingi, I'm asking for a good wife, I'm asking for horse, I'm asking for dal, I'm asking for this. So there's Shabads, there's Bhagats that have asked for simple things as well in life. But they're not asking for anything other than out of the kind of, extents that Vara says, Baba hor khana khushi khwar jit khade tan piriye man mein chale vakar, that we're asking for too much that man de vich vakar chal pave. Fear. Put your hands up if you're scared of spiders. I can see loads of people in here. I'm scared of spiders. Still, I think I'm 98% through them. There's just sometimes, the big, thick, furry ones. I try my hardest. I get the cup. I get the card underneath it. But there is a part of me inside that fears them. I think it's some kind of primal instinct from, probably hundreds of millions of years ago when spiders were hunting us or something. But there is that thing there. Fear. Now, Guru Sahib talks about fear in Gurbani. What kind of fear should we have? What kind of fear shouldn't we have? Maharaj talks about Peh. We say every single day, Kunkar, Satnam, Karta, Purkh, Nirpo, Nirvair. Nirpo was without fear. That is the attribute of Guru. Guru is without fear. Maharaj says, Peh kahu ko det neh, peh manatan. Guru Sahib doesn't accept anyone's fear, nor does he put fear into anyone. Maharaj says, Tiste upar nahi koe, kaun dare, dar kiska hoye. How can you fear when Guru tere sir te baita? Jista sahib dada hoye, tisnu maar na sake koi. So any fear should be dispelled. A Sikh can't fear. Because a Sikh should be like the Guru. Sikh Guru, Guru Sikh, vicho Guru Upadesh chalai. That the Upadesh comes from the Sikh and the Guru are ek. Maharaj says, Har jan aisa chaiya jaisa har hi hoy. That the jan, the har, they need to be the same. So if we, as Sikh, are the same as Guru, Guru is nirpo and he's nirvair. So how can we have fear? So that's a hukam in Gurbani as well. The thieves, the panj chor. How do we control them? Control. We can't beat them because we need them. If we get rid of them totally, then we'd all be vegetables. We wouldn't have any personalities. We wouldn't have anything about us. The 5 thieves, Kaam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Hankar, they need to be tied and used. You need Kaam. How are you going to procreate? You need Krodh. If you don't get angry, how are you going to get biras? How are you going to fight injustice? You need more. You need attachment. Why do you need attachment? How am I going to be attached to my kakars? How am I going to be attached to my Guru? If I don't have attachment. Greed. Why do I need greed? If I don't have greed, how do I want to do more Bani? How do I want to do more Seva? How do I want to serve more? Homme. Dhiragrog. The one that controls all of them. Why does it control all of them? Because Homme, calm, I want that thing. Krodh, he hurt my feelings. Greed, I want that thing. Attachment, that's mine. That's home that controls all the other four. Now home, how do we turn that into something we need? Saibi. Chidiyan se baaj lao. Maharaj, a Garib Sikhan ko deon Patshahi. He gave them Patshahi. That when I stand tall, that is not me standing tall. Eta Guru da roop hai. Khalsa mera roop hai kaas, Khalsa mein ho karo nivas. So this is when I'm standing tall, this is Saibi. We call it Saibi, we don't call it ego. This is him. So understanding that we use these 5 thieves, but we need to use them for the betterment and their tools. They can't control us. If we're driving, we should be in the driving seat and they should be the passengers. They shouldn't be driving the car. Now understanding all these hukams, there's one that I haven't talked about. But imagine if I said to you, I love Guru Sahib, I know the right kind of love, I know how to desire, I know how to do this, I know how to, love, I know how to protect, but I can't, when it comes to it, when it comes to injustice happening, I can't stand up and I can't voice it. If someone came and tried to beat Bobby Singh up right now, I'd be like, you know what, I've got a job, I've got kids at home, I don't want to get involved. Is that what Khalsa is? If I did my entire life, I jabbed around, I did my desires, I fought my fears, I loved Guru Sahib, but I couldn't protect the weak, would I be accepted? The answer is, if I couldn't do them all, Maharaj says, Sat Gur ki agya, Sat karmani. Understanding, if I accept some things Guru Sahib is saying, and I reject the others, what Guru Sahib said to me, Salam jawab doveh kare. Mundo kutta jaye, nanak doveh kudiyan thain na kai paye. If I can't accept him completely, then I might as well not even accept anything he's saying. Now I'm not saying to you guys, if I can't wake up Amrita, that's say I'm going to leave Sikhi because I can't accept everything. No. What Guru Sahib is saying to you, to be a Khalsa, you need to be a complete package. We're going to talk about the Khalsa. Now, the Khalsa is the Miri and the Piri. It's the saintly. It's the spiritual. And it comes down to this Sikhi, that Bhutta that Guru Nanak Maharaj planted. Now that Bhutta that was planted, it was irrigated, it was nourished, it was given, the right type of sunlight, the right type of nutrients. It was given by every single Guru. Where each Guru taught it a different attribute, that plant. And that plant bore fruit in the end. And that plant, the fruit was called Khalsa. The Khalsa is the complete package. It went through all them hardships. The test, Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj didn't have to say on the Tatti Tavi. They were Shah and Shah. They were Malik. Guru Sahib didn't have to say Varis Sarbants. Why did they do it? To teach us that when hardship comes, you have to sacrifice. But dolnani. Don't back down. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Maharaj didn't have to give his cease for humanity. But they did. To teach us that pame, dushman chad ke aave for humanity. Yeah, sacrifice. So you can understand the Khalsa. Now the Khalsa is the attributes that make the complete and perfect human being. The Shabad Khalsa so jo ninda te aage, Khalsa so jo lade hoye aage, Khalsa jo malle se chade. Can you see the pattern? Ninda te aage, lade hoye aage, naam jap kade, malle se chade. Khalsa jo nirtan ko pale, Khalsa jo dusht ko gale. One is Guru Sahib is talking about the spiritual, your ninda tyagani, naam japna, protecting the poor, nirtan ko pale. At the same time, to fight against tyranny, to uproot, to stand against injustice. Can you see the balance of the Miri and the Piri, of what the Khalsa is? It's the Deg and the Teg. Pehla si Deg sikhande hain. Je koi aaya, Deg shako. Te Deg naal nahi manne fir Teg chalaunde. That is the philosophy of the Khalsa. We always start off with the Deg. And if you see any Nishan Sahib with the Miri Piri, there's one always higher. Which one's that? It's always the Piri, the spirituality, the Naam Bani, the Daya, the Dharm. When Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj asked for a cease, who's the first ones to stand up? Bhai Daya Singh Ji, because the Daya is the foundation. What came after Daya? Dharm. What came after Dharm? Himmat, courage. And then came after that? Mokam, your discipline. And after came that? Saibi. Now who was the first to go in the Battle of Chamkaur? Saibi. ताज भी चले गए, बाज भी चले गए, हाथी भी चले गए, सोना भी चले गया, सारा कुछ चले गया सरसी नदी दे विच. साहिब भी चले गई. Mokam and Bhai Himmat Singh were the next to be Shaheed. But Bhai Daya Singh and Bhai Tarab Singh stayed with Guru Sahib till the very end. Because Guru Sahib was teaching us, that's your foundation. Without that, you're nothing. And that's why the Piri is always higher. The spiritual, the Naam, Bani, the connection. If I came to you and said, Bobby Singh, let's go have a fight with some guys down the street right now, would you just get up and walk with me? You wouldn't. You'd ask me one thing first. What's what? What's the fight? Why are we fighting? What are we fighting for? If you understand Naam, Bani, Simran, who we're fighting for, what the fight is for, you won't need to ask that question because you know what you're fighting for. And that's the foundation. So understanding, Mara says, Taram chalavan, Sant ubaran, Dusht saban ko mool ubaran. That this is Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj saying this, that the whole policy of life is Taram chalavan, Sant ubaran, to praise the saints, Dusht saban ko mool ubaran, to punish the wicked. Maharaj says, Santa mano, Duta dano, ek katwari meri. Jaikar kiya tarmiya ka, e papi ko dand diyoy. These are all shabads that come in Gurbani that talk about the philosophy of the Khalsa. Again, we say in Reras, Deg, Teg, Jag mein do chale. That the Deg and the Teg, the sword and the langar, we serve if we need to. Now, to understand this plant, if the Miri is on the outside and the Piri is the foundation, you never see the roots of a plant. You never see them. But if you don't have strong roots in a plant, you can have the best flowers, the big tree, the big plant. If you got the roots, what's going to happen as soon as wind comes? It's going to blow over. That's your foundation, your Daya, your Taram, your Naam Bani. If I cut that stem there and the roots were strong, what would happen? It would grow back. That's because the Piri, the spirituality, is always the foundation. Now, Bhai Randhir Singh, Bhai Sahib. When you start to look at Bhai Sahib's attributes and you start to look at their life, you're like, is there anything that Bhai Sahib didn't do? He was a writer. He was a Gursikh. He was humble. You're going to talk about his humility now. He's a leader. He was a reformer. He's a revolutionary. He's a freedom fighter. He was a compassionate. He was a scholar. He was fearless, but he was a saint at the same time. For me, he had all the attributes to be that Khalsa, that complete package. And we're going to talk about Bhai Sahib's life. So Bhai Sahib was born in 1878. And this quotation is from the book. And we're going to talk a little bit about the book and what the book is about. And it is a phenomenal book. Everyone needs to read that at least once in their life. But I won't go into too much of the quotations. We're going to break this talk down into 3 stages. And it revolves around Bhai Sahib's time in jail. So pre-jail, jail, and after jail. Because a large part of their life, around 17 years, Bhai Sahib was in jail. So we're going to talk about why they went to jail, what happened when they were in jail, and after jail, what happened. So Bhai Sahib, I'm going to refer to Bhai Sahib as Bhai Sahib, so you know I'm talking about Bhai Randhir Singh. And we're going to delve a little bit into the history of Bhai Randhir Singh and kind of how they came about, what their spiritual experiences were, why they went to jail. So to understand Bhai Sahib, this is kind of a breakdown of Bhai Sahib's father. Bhai Sahib's father was Sardar Natha Singh. Real powerful name, Natha Singh. And Bhai Sahib's father was really, really well educated. And he was really well respected. He was a teacher, and from teacher he turned into the headmaster. From headmaster, he went and gave his exams for law. He passed something called the Munshi Fazil, which is a Persian and Arabic. He was fluent to a degree level in Arabic and in Persian. And then he sat his law exams without even attending college for law. After that, he was offered the Tahsildar of Nabba, and later on he kind of came on to write, translate the law books. He actually translated the Indian, the penal code. And eventually, he became a high court judge. Now, that isn't Bhai Randhir Singh's father. This is Maharaja Hira Singh, who employed Bhai Sahib's father within his kind of Raj to look after the legal and the literacy of it. Now, understanding this is a picture of Maharaja Hira Singh and Maharaja Ripudaman. This is kind of just to give you guys a feel of what the Sikh were like at that time, what they were doing in terms of the philosophy. And this is, we're talking about Bhai Sahib's father would have been amongst one of these as being one of the kind of, the Sealdars at the time. Bhai Sahib's mother, I really like her name. Her name was Mata Punjab Kaur. She was a descendant of Bhai Bhagtuji. Bhai Bhagtuji was a disciple of Guru Hargobind Sahib Maharaj and Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj. And they were told in their life that within each generation, for 7 generations, there's always going to be some kind of kala. There's always going to be some kind of spiritual gift. And Mataji was the 7th within that. So she was within the 7 generations. And they said that Mata, whenever Mata said something, she gave a bachan about something, Mata, it would always come true. Whether it was Kora, whether it was Sacha, anything she always said, it came true. So she had to be really careful. And because of that, she didn't speak much. Imagine if everything he said came true. It'd be very scary. It'd be very scary. So understanding Bhai Sahib, came from a very strong, they were from a very high class family, a very, very high class family. So understanding kind of who Bhai Sahib was and where they came from. Now Bhai Sahib growing up was a very sharp mind, they said. He had a very good memory retention. And within he was a very, very sensitive child. Very sensitive. There's one story in Maharaja Hira's garden where where the dad was working. He fell in love with this flower. And the way he describes this flower, he was walking to school and he'd see this flower and he'd just be in awe. He couldn't explain how beautiful this flower was. And one day, some of his classmates went and plucked that flower. He actually went out of his way to tell the gardener, make sure this flower was not plucked. And one day he saw to his distraught that the flower wasn't there. He asked the gardener, and the gardener said, oh, some of your classmates went and plucked it to mock you. And he fainted. Bhai Sahib fainted. They had to take him and lay him down, and his father was called. And when asked again, when he regained conscious, he asked about the flower again. And when he found out that the flower was gone, he fainted again. And the Maharaja Hira Singh heard about this. And he sent a message to Bhai Randhir Singh. Actually, his name wasn't Bhai Randhir Singh then. Does anyone know what name Bhai Randhir Singh was born with? Any ideas? His name was Bhai Basant Singh. He was born with the name Bhai Basant Singh. He was given the name Bhai Randhir Singh when he took Amrit. So the message was sent to Bhai Basant Singh and said, we will plant an entire garden of them flowers. And that story is just to kind of give a glimpse of how sensitive nature Bhai Sahib was, the compassionate that they are just for a flower. Another story of forgiveness of Bhai Sahib growing up. Bhai Sahib had workers in the house, a worker from Bihar. And this worker had stolen the gold in the house, stolen all the gold. And they took the gold with them. The person that stole the gold, who was a worker in the house, they got caught and they got sent to jail. And Bhai Sahib begged and pleaded with his father saying, please don't send him to jail. Please don't send him to jail. But he'd stolen all the gold. And what happened? Eventually, because he told his dad that many times, the dad said, okay, we'll give him a second chance and we'll bring him back. What happened? Well, when he was a little bit older, Bhai Sahib was sent off to college. And on his way to the college, at the train station, that same person, the same person that Bhai Sahib had bakshed, ran off with all the gold, never to be seen again. And Bhai Sahib was asked about this later on in life, like, why did you trust him? And the quotation was, it is God alone who can judge who is really virtuous and who is really a sinner. The greatest sinner can become the noblest saint, and attitude towards evildoers should be one of compassion and not of hatred. Only those who are willfully cruel should be severely dealt with or avoided. A lot of character from a young individual. Bhai Sahib then grew up, around 1898. He became captain of his hockey team in his school, and he was a poet. He wrote over 70 Urdu poems. He wrote 2 small books on his own poetry. And if you read his poetry, it's really, really good. He was fluent. He remembered Rumi's poems and other poems at the time. And he was really well articulate in Urdu, in Farsi, in English. He could speak Hindi. He could speak all these languages, and he could recite poetry. Okay, I want to ask you a question here. What is the most important? I know you're all going to say this. But really, what is the most important out of these three? No one cares about the body. Me gym membership laiye main. Might be a trick question, might be the same. We've got 35 people vote, and it's between mind and soul. Yeah? Baban, what do you think? What's the most important? Mind, body, or soul?
Soul.
Soul, okay. Right. Baban's correct. The soul is eternal. The soul is the thing that we're connecting back to the one. The body is just the vessel that the soul's in. And the mind is the connection between the body and the soul. Now, what do we do to entertain our body? You know, cheeky dominoes on a Tuesday night. I know you guys down there nodding your heads. Yeah? You eat all the nice foods to entertain the body. Yeah? What else do we do? To entertain the body, we do all sorts of stuff. Go for a massage, go to the gym, to keep... Cake box, did you say? Yeah, maybe cake box as well. I'm plugging, certain brands in at the moment, promoting their branding. The mind, what do we do to please the mind? Social media, Netflix, TV, read a book, speak to friends. All these things are entertaining the mind. How many of us actually spend time for our soul? Whereas it's the most important. The nourishment, the food that the soul needs, how many times do we nourish that soul? And I'm going to start off with this story of Bhai Sahib. This is where the things changed for him. So Bhai Sahib was coming up to his BA exams. And spirituality and religion was far away from Bhai Sahib's mind. Didn't care about spirituality, didn't care about religion. In fact, he cared about religion in terms of he knew that he belonged to a faith, but never explored it. And his dad writes him a letter in the early 1900s before his BA exam, and he said, before your exam, Japji Sahib da part padhni. Wrote it to him in a letter. So he was a good kid, he was a sensitive kid, he listened to his parents. So what did he do? Go Gutka Sahib, and he began reading Japji Sahib. And he couldn't put the Gutka down. The way he describes when he started reading Japji Sahib, he said that every single pore, every single hair on his body began to vibrate to this nad, this current, this boom, boom, the universal energy. And every pore in his body began to vibrate to that Japji Sahib. And he fell into this trance. He couldn't see beyond the Japji Sahib. He put the Gutka down, the Japji Sahib was automatically resonating within him. It was pumping, it was oozing out of him. And just wanted to resonate that Japji Sahib more. And he couldn't concentrate on his studies. He couldn't understand that every time he went to sit down to study, he just kept thinking about Japji Sahib. Japji Sahib just kept coming into his head. And it was that one thing that his father said to him that changed the rest of his life. And that one thing that his father said to him is probably the reason I'm standing here talking to you guys right now. Because it was that Japji Sahib that then changed the trajectory of his life. So understanding, he started to prioritize part over his studies. And his father was getting really frustrated. He's like, I didn't tell you to do just Japji Sahib, where was your studies? Bhai Sahib, in his autobiography, explains it as a deep spiritual yearning that is the soul, the eyes of his soul opened for the first time. Now what happened? His final exams were drawing near, his law examination, and he received a letter. You have to appear in 2 examinations. If you want to pass, recite Japji Sahib. This is what his father said to him. These are quotations from the book. This was a miracle which the Lord worked on me. I started reciting a prayer for selfish ends. My swan-like soul, which was passionately thirsting for the pearl drops of love, got its real food and forgot everything else. You know that thing that we talked about, nourishment that the soul needs. The mystic significance of the Guru's hymns became so clear to me within a few days that I became a restless seeker for the unseen, the beloved. I lost almost all my body's consciousness in this spiritual search for the love and beloved. I recited the Raras in such soul-stirring strain that the listeners were deeply moved. At last, one day, the following lines of Raras pierced my soul and gave me the definite purpose of life. What do you think that Shabad was? The purpose of life. Pai prapat manuk dohriya gobind milan ki eh teri bariya. So understanding of then Bhai Sahib's journey starts. And his father was seriously upset. You know, he was worried about him. And he came and his father said to him, look, he gave him this long lecture saying, look, you know, yeah, your prayers are important, but also what's important is your study. So what Byron thinks, he said, I listened to him in silence, as a good son would, and said, Tiki, I will try. But even after that, his yearning and his sadness, the virag within him just wouldn't stop. That longing, that wanting to know who the Creator was, what the purpose of life, he just couldn't shake it. And he says, fearing that someone might report it to his father, he never talked to anyone else about these feelings that he was getting of intense virag, intense longing, intense. He was crying his eyes out behind closed doors because he just wanted to know what the purpose of life is. I don't know what happened there. So understanding how and what that led on to, you can start to see within the next few days. Baban, is the charger plugged in? Is Baban not here? It says the battery is low. So within this, is it switched on? It's off. Typical Baban. So within this, Bhai Sahib has this very, very unique but amazing spiritual experience. And this is fantastic part of the book. So Bhai Sahib's in college. And he has this longing and yearning to know more, to want to know more. And he says, he does this ardas from his heart, and he says to Guru Sahib, he's like, give me a teacher, give me someone that can teach me what the way is. And while he's sitting there, he sees this yogi. Now, I can only imagine that the yogi looked like someone like this. He's wearing, you know, very less clothing, and he was walking. And he was walking like he's aloof to the world, like he's the king of the world, but the world doesn't even know he exists. The stand he's walking in, how he's walking through. Bhai Sahib looked at him, and he just looked at Bhai Sahib once. He locked eyes, just locked eyes, and Bhai Sahib fell into a trance. Dropped his books. His schoolmates are like, what's he doing? What's he doing? He just dropped his books on the floor and just followed this sadhu, just walked behind him. There's another person in history that's happened to, and I want to talk to you about, right at the end I'll talk to you about that. Remind me if I forget. So Bhai Sahib, just in his intoxication of this person, wanting to know more, just began to follow this person. And he was following him as he was walking through the streets. People were offering him fruit. He was just walking past them. But when Bhai Sahib explains, he goes, I'm walking behind him. He doesn't know I exist, but he knows I exist. He's looking at me with the eyes at the back of his head. I know he can see me. I know he's looking straight at me, but he's just blindly following him. And he's in this trance. And he's walking for miles and miles and miles. And they walk through, and you know, if we read it, I'm only regurgitating what I've read, but if you actually read it, I followed him immediately. One of my companions picked up my books and followed me. I persuaded him not to accompany me. So he talks about the yogi felt impelled by some unknown power to him. I lost all sense and shame and hesitation, discrimination, and followed him in a hypnotic fascination. I even forgot where I was, which city I was, what road I was on, how I was moving. My eyes were fixed on this carefree gait of yogi. Like a shadow, I followed him at the distance. but I was afraid to get too close to him. Many sweet meat vendors were offering him sweets, fruit sellers. He was just oblivious. He just kept walking straight and out of sight. And he was like, he wanted to know more. He had this yearning to know more. Now, Bhai Sahib follows this yogi all day, throughout the whole day. And it's amazing. He goes, the yogi, I found this bit really funny. He goes, the yogi's walking into random houses. And he's walking through houses. And he goes, people in the houses are just like, yeah, they're just carrying on with the business. He even talks about him walking through a college and there's a lesson going on. He walks through the classroom. Everyone in the classroom just ignores, like they can't see him. He's walking through walls. He's just blindly just in trance of this yogi. Now it comes to this courtyard, and this is an actual painting of this courtyard. It's in the Lahore court. And there's a fountain there. And the yogi settles down. Bhai Sahib sits at afar and he's just watching this yogi. Yogi takes off his robe, gets some pani, starts drinking it, splashing on himself. And the yogi looks at him and then ignores him and lays and prostrates, full dundot on the floor. Now Bhai Sahib looks at him and sees, what is he doing? And Bhai Sahib thinks, hang on a minute. And within that moment when Bhai Sahib sees he must be something special, he's carefree of the world, within Bhai Sahib's pores, every single pore, deep within him, automatically, Japji Sahib that part starts. Bhai Sahib, within, sorry about that guys, Baskara. Japji Sahib that part starts within his pores. A little bit like when Bhai Mati Das Ji was cut down, Japji Sahib was coming from within. He wasn't saying the Japji Sahib, he could just hear the Japji Sahib resonating within him. And while the Japji Sahib is going on, Bhai Sahib passes out. He passes out on the floor. And within that passing out, he talks about this unique experience. This unique experience. The recitation of Japji sounded within my whole being in a sweet musical tone. I felt light. He felt like the earth was lifting him. Suddenly I felt elevated in a state I had never experienced before. I could see only endless space of sublime realm. My ears heard Japji Sahib resounding within me. I could neither see the yogi nor the fountain, nothing. So basically, from within, he could see just the realm, just nothing. Everything around him had blanked out. Now, eventually, after maybe what could be hours, Bhai Sahib woke up. And after he woke up, the yogi was no longer there. He was gone. So Bhai Sahib recited Reras. I think he might have recited Reras first, and the yogi had gone by the end. He finished Reras. And then Bhai Sahib went home. He woke up that same morning, and the first thing he thought of when he woke up, Famratullah, I want to see that yogi again. His friends came to get him. The friends were like, we're going to a watch shop, we're going to a watch shop. And they took Bhai Sahib with him. And then Bhai Sahib's at this watch shop and he's looking at them buying these watches, and his mind's just that, you know what, Guru Sahib, I want to see this yogi again. Soon as he thought of the yogi, in that very instance, the yogi appeared. And this time, the yogi looked him straight in the eyes and he smiled at him. And Bhai Sahib again just threw his books. Yeah? I know you're going to think that he just threw. His friends are like, oh, he's gone again. And he's in this trance, and Bhai Sahib starts following this yogi again. And again, they're walking through streets, they're walking through, and they get to this one gate called Shah Gate, where all yogis and spiritual people used to sit. And he, even in this, he doesn't go and sit with other yogis, he doesn't get food offerings, he just goes and sits in a simple place himself. And Bhai Sahib sits back and is just watching him, he's in awe again. But then this yogi does something. And this thing that the yogi does just throws Bhai Sahib off. And Bhai Sahib talks about it. He goes, Mere pairo jameen khiski. Like the world from underneath me just went. Does anyone know what the yogi did? Yes?
He started smoking.
Yes, he started smoking. So he took out this hookah pipe, he lay up and he started smoking. And Bhai Sahib was like, he felt like death came upon him. The person that he'd looked up to be this saintly person that had all the answers, that was going to guide him, was smoking hookah. Now, some people might think, you know what, that's not that bad. Doesn't matter. But within Sikhi, it's like one of the biggest sins. And this Shabad came to Bhai Sahib's head. Now, what happened at that time, when Bhai Sahib just got up, all of a sudden, in distraught, and began walking off. Now, one thing I forgot to tell you was that this yogi had not spoken for years. He had done a tap, a tyag, where he for connection to God and to find God, he said, I'm not going to speak. And he hadn't spoken for years, and everyone around him knew that. When Bhai Sahib got up and walked off, he spoke out to Bhai Sahib and he said, Bas, and nahi sega tere kol? Is that all you had? In the first test and the first hurdle, you've gone. Bhai Sahib continued walking. He said it again. Bhai Sahib turned around and said to him, even if you said to me now that you are God, I couldn't see you in the same light, because you've done something that's against Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Guru Gobind Singh Ji's philosophy, which is Hukam. Now, he continued walking, and even those people around, these disciples, they were going up to Bhai Sahib and saying, do you know who that is? Do you know how spiritual he is? Do you know he's got Riddhiyan Siddhiyan? Do you know he's got this? Bhai Sahib's like, मैं जानिया वडहंस है ते मैं किया संग जे जाने बग बपड़ा ता जन्म ना देंदियंग. That if I knew that he wasn't what he was, I wouldn't have given him my time. It's a very important lesson within this. We often look at other people and think, you know what, he's got something. Never look at an individual. An individual can fall at any time. Maharaj says in Gurbani that every single person has got paap within him. We are all paap de putle. That there's only one that doesn't have paap, and that's the Guru. Yeah? So understanding that the Guru is the true way. Guru bin kor andar, Guru bin samajh na have, Guru bin mukt, Guru bin asurt na sid, Guru bin mukt na pave. That the Guru is the only thing that's going to give us mukti. So understanding that. Now, the very next morning, Guru Sahib, Bhai Sahib wakes up Amritullah, and he does an ardas to Guru Sahib. And in this ardas, he says, show me the true way, the true sin. And he decides to wake up that morning, and later on he goes to this astan. Does anyone know what this astan is? Bhai Taru Singh Ji's Shahidi Astan. It's in Pakistan. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's disputed. Because there's a mosque there, there's a thin wall between it, and it's not open to the public anymore. The public can't go visit it. This Kar Seva Yatra are trying to look after some of the seva of the Gurdwara within Pakistan, and when speaking to them, they said that, it's unfortunate that Sangat can't even go and do darshan of this place anymore. But Bhai Sahib wakes up in the morning, and he walks to the Gurdwara to do Matha Tek, and as he's walking up, he sees this real mystical person, Bana, white dadi, and he's standing near the entrance of the Gurdwara, and he walks up to him. And the Bhai Sahib, the elderly, just pats him on the back and he goes, "Aa gaya?" He goes, "Oh, Emi sadhu de piche lagga sega hukka peen wale de." And Bhai Sahib's like, "Wow." And he said, "Andar ja, the King of Kings, the Gyan of all Gyan is there. Utte ladla." When we say that there's no one, Jeso chanda ugve, Suraj chade hazar, tete chanan hondeya, gur bin kor andar. It's darkness without the Guru. And it's at that very moment where Bhai Sahib then attaches themselves to the Guru and doesn't go anywhere else from that point onwards. So Bhai Sahib then kind of devotes himself to Sikhi and starts moving on the path of Sikhi and becomes in this position what his dad was in, but as a Naib Tehsildar, which is collecting kind of tax, and was helping an Englishman at the time whose name was Mr. Fisher, Dr. Fisher. And Dr. Fisher, what they were doing is, because there was a plague at that time, they were going and he was helping them translate, they were, understanding, collecting information. Now, I won't go into the too many details of this story of what it is. There was a lot of corruption. And within that corruption, Bhai Sahib was like, I can't do this job, because if I'm taking money off the poor and the weak and the ill, and I'm eating that money, I'm going to become ill myself. So he was a person of principle. He quit his job. But before he quit his job, there's this really famous interaction that took place, which was between Bhai Sahib and Dr. Fisher, where they're both on horseback. They're going between village to village, and they're both on horseback. And Dr. Fisher was an Englishman. He spoke English, and Bhai Sahib could speak English. Now, what happened is they're on their horses, And they come across, like imagine I'm on this horse here right now and there's a Gurdwara and the entrance is open and you can see the Granthi Sahib inside and he's doing Chaur Sahib and he's reading part. So naturally, Bhai Sahib jumped off the horse in the middle of the road and did Matha Tek to Guru Sahib. And this Englishman looking at Bhai Sahib thinking, you know what, I don't want to disrespect him. He got off the horse too and he went and did Matha Tek. Because the Englishman at the time was trying to understand what the philosophy is, how they do what they're doing. So he did Matha Tek. And he got back on the horse, and then and Bhai Sahib was like, why did you do Matha Tek? He's like, oh, out of respect and understanding. And they started this discussion. And the discussion led to Bhai Sahib transcribing that discussion, which is a book that's called Sri Guru Granth Sahib Di Puja But Puja Hai. Is Guru Granth Sahib Ji's worship idol worship? They had this really long interaction back and forth. And in the end, the Englishman was convinced that it's not idol worship. And that was the first ever book that Bhai Sahib published. That's in 1910. And in 1910, he didn't put his name to it. All he'd put was Singh and Fisher. Singh and Fisher. And later on, everyone knew that that book was actually Bhai Sahib's book. And then they started putting his name to it. But it's a real read. It's been translated in English. And it's on a website called the Bhai Randhir Singh Trust. Any book that I talk about today is on this website that you can see. In fact, I've got a copy of the book here today with me. So if anyone wants to take one, they can take one. It's just to donate anything that you want to put in. If anything you want to put in, it's your choice. So understanding that that book gave clarity of is Guru Granth Sahib Ji's Puja But Puja. Okay, moving on. Another real important incident in Bhai Sahib's life was a Japji Sahib incident. So at this point, Bhai Sahib had become, he attuned to Gurbani. He was loving Gurbani. He was, Gurbani was his everything. Naam, Bani was the epicenter of his life. His dad got ill with malaria. And his dad was on his deathbed. Everyone that was coming to help his dad was getting ill and was getting sent home. He was the only one left. And what had happened is he was serving his dad and he got Bukhar as well. He got ill. And he was put on the hospital bed next to his father. And the doctor came in and said, your dad's not going to survive. He's not passed urine in the last 3 days. So if you want to survive, take this medicine, get yourself better, and then you can see your dad in his last moments. His dad was told that he's not going to live. And Bhai Sahib had this so much drirta. He came in and he said, Sarbarog ko okhadna. That the true cure for all diseases is Naam, is Bani. His father didn't believe that. His father believed that medicine is needed and you need medicine to cure anything. What Bhai Sahib did was he got his kambal, put it over his head, and he started Japji Sahib that part. And he was doing Japji Sahib that part from within. He wasn't doing it out loud. He was reading it from within. He did it 4 times. And on the 5th time, Bhai Sahib was reading it. And he came to the Manne di Podi. Manne surt hove man buddh. Manne sagal pavan ki sud. And he couldn't move past. Got stuck there. Read it again, got stuck there. And for what he felt like hours, he was just stuck on this one Manne, that Shabad. Just over and over again. Manne di Podi, Manne di Podi. Until he regained consciousness and he was doing Manne di Podi in his head. And he realized when he got up, he was drenched in sweat. But he'd felt 100 times better. And he walked over to his father, and his father, who hadn't passed urine in 3 days, had now passed urine and was feeling better. And when he spoke to his father, he said, are you okay? And his father said, I can hear Manne di Podi in my ears, and Minu enna ananda reha. He goes, I can feel the bliss from that Bani. And at that very moment, Bhai Sahib stood there, closed his eyes and did ardas, pukar, that your Bani has so much energy that without me even saying it within me, it's affecting the people around. And that's the power of the Bani. And that really, really changed Bhai Sahib's life at that point. And then Bhai Sahib decided at that very moment that he now is going to take Amrit, that he's going to go and receive Amrit. Now, within this, Bhai Sahib goes to a Kirtan. And in this Kirtan, he's sitting in Sangat and he's in bliss. And the way he explains this Kirtan, he's like, me parya, me, it's drenching, it's raining with Amrit. It's like standing and arrow and after arrow is pacing his body with pure and pure bliss. Has anyone ever had the hair stand on its ends? And that feeling of goosebumps, just times that by 1,000. The energy is oozing into him. He is feeling so elevated. And he's sitting in his Kirtan, he feels like he's in Sachkhand. And within the Kirtan, he's got his eyes closed. And he can see the Sangat. He can see the Sangat. And within the Sangat, he sees this light behind him. He ain't turned around, but he can see this light behind him. And the light is approaching. The light is coming down. The light is coming down. And it taps him on the shoulder. It's not in physical being. It's in some astral being. It's in a realm. But he's still within the physical world. And it touches him and it says, come with me. And I'm not doing it justice explaining it in my words. When Bhai Sahib describes it, how this being then took him back up. And he saw these 5 beings standing within this pure light, which is Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj and the Panch Singh behind. And he can't talk, he's in bliss. He's in, when someone's crying so much and there's so much that they just can't get their words out. He's in pure bliss. He can't actually even handle how much bliss he's in at the moment. He's just oozing out of his body. And he says within his mind, am I worthy of this Amrit? Can I take this Amrit? And the Panch Singh said, one of the Panch Singh said, they said to him, if you want to be blessed with Amrit, you need to come with your wife. Because you're 2 souls you're one body, you're one soul in 2 bodies. Ek jot, doi murti. That you both need to come and receive this Amrit. And as soon as they said that to Bhai Sahib, he came into the real world and he saw the actual Panch Singh. First he was seeing their souls, he was seeing their light, he wasn't seeing them in the physical body. He'd realized now that he was in the Amrit Sanchar, he don't know how he got there, and he was talking to the Panch Pyare in an Amrit Sanchar. And he realized that, okay, I want to take Amrit, but I need to take my wife. And the Panch Pyare at that time sang this Shabad to him. Now, understanding the energy that comes from singing, it's unbelievable. We in this room right now, we're all beings. We're all that same being. We've got that light within us. Now we can either sit in Sangat and just listen, or we can sing. And when we sing, the person next to you is getting the full as you are, is getting the gun, is getting the energy. Now, if everyone in Sangat was singing, it's like a nuclear reactor. It's like bouncing off each other. And that experience is something that can't be talked about. It can only be experienced. And I feel like we should try that. Yeah, I can see some smiles across the room. So, everyone, sit up straight. We're going to sing this Shabad. But I want every single one person in this room, I want you to actually sing with love. Understand the meaning. It is Ram Japoji aise aise, Tru Prahlad Japyo har jaise, Deen Dayal Parose tere, Sab Parvar Chadaya bere. And they sang this Shabad. Now, if every single one of us actually tries to sing this Shabad from their heart and sing outwardly, close your eyes, you don't have to look at anyone out here. Remember, we're a family here. You don't have to feel embarrassed. You don't have to feel like, oh, I can't sing. I'm going to try to sing now. You're going to think, oh my God, this guy should just stay to talking. Yeah? But we're not here to judge. I'm not on X Factor. We're not here, Britain's Got Talent. We're here to connect. That energy is only going to come when we connect with each other. Yeah? So I'm going to say the line, and I want you guys to repeat the line after me. Ram japo ji aise aise, Ram japo ji aise aise, Tru Prahlad japyo har jaise, Tru Prahlad japyo har jaise, Deen Dayal parose tere, Sab parvar chadaya bere, Deen Dayal parose tere, सब परिवार चढ़ाया बेड़े वाहिगुरु 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 जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु. Now imagine if everyone sings like that in the Sangat from their heart. Could you feel that vibration within the room bouncing off each other? That is the power of the Sangat. And that is the thing that changes lives. The energy is not me, it's not you, it's not about me and you, it's about us. It's about a collective. Why do people go to football games? They go to football games because they chant together, and that chant in itself has an energy, and that energy is what we should be feeling within the Sangat. Whenever you go to Sangat, try to sing, because when you sing out loud, whoever's listening to that will get the full, will get the energy, will gain the energy from it. It's very important. So Bhai Sahib then went on to receive Amrit at 14th of June 1903, and even within that the story is absolutely amazing. But I'm not going to go through every single story because I want you guys to read the book. It's amazing. And within Bhai Sahib's villagers began to treat him differently. Why? Because when they took Amrit, there was people of lower caste that also took the Amrit. And the well in Punjab's Pind, in Bhai Sahib's Pind, they said you can't take water from that village, from the village well. Why? Because you've drank from the same batta as a lower caste. And Bhai Sahib later on in his life, actually in the Gurdwara reform movement, was one of the biggest things that Bhai Sahib changed. Was even in places like Chamkaur Sahib, lower caste people weren't allowed to come in and receive deg. They weren't allowed to come into the Gurdwara. And that's one of the main things that Bhai Sahib changed in the reform movement. So again, another amazing story in Abtabad, a place in north Pakistan, way past Punjab Sahib at the moment, where Bhai Sahib received the divine light of Guru Mantar. Bhai Sahib did this ardas and says, I want Guru Mantar from Guru Sahib. And Guru Sahib, this Shabad came up, Ve Motaja, Ve Parva, Nanak Das, Kahon Gurva. And the light, the darshan that Guru Sahib got within that place. Amazing story. And just want to give you guys a glimpse that the connection, the spiritual connection, hope you guys got an essence of that. Because Bhai Sahib's life then began to change. Within his own spiritual jivan, he didn't need to tell anyone what he was doing, how he was doing it, what was going on with him. But panthically, he had duties, and he began to uphold them panthic duties. So Gurdwara reform movement, there was one incident that took place within the Gurdwara reform movement, which I'm going to come on to, is about a Rakabganj Gurdwara. But you can see during the festivals at Chamkaur Sahib, he noticed that the Gurdwara management was barring the low caste devotees from entering. Bhai Randhir Singh compelled the managers to open the gates, and he did this at several Gurdwara. He was like, no, the Gurdwara is open to everyone. Everyone's equal. Even Bhai Sahib's Kirtan was something that people talked about for years and years and years until this very day. Anyone that ever listened to Bhai Sahib's Kirtan, they said it was like raining. Me perya sega. You listen, you'd fallen into a trance. And there was an incident where Bhai Sahib went to do Kirtan at the Akal Takht, and the Akal Takht's like, no, we can't do Kirtan here. No, you ain't got space. And there's a Gursikh, Baba Sham Singh, who intervened, and he knew Bhai Sahib, and he says, no, come do Kirtan at Akal Takht. And when Bhai Sahib actually did the Kirtan, everyone was in so much bliss and awe. He did it from his heart. He sang. And normally what you see, the Singhs that do a Kirtan from Akhand Kirtani Jatha, they don't stick to a rag, they don't stick to a certain Shabbats, but they sing because they're singing from the heart. They try to sing of what the feeling and where that's taking them. So an understanding, and that's the same style that Bhai Randhir Singh used to do Kirtan in. It's from the heart, it's from the passion of the Shabad. And it was funny enough that when Bhai Sahib did this Kirtan in Akal Takht, he was showered with money. And at the end of the Kirtan, very simply, Bhai Sahib packed up and he just did ardas to the Sangat and walked off and left the money there. And funny enough, the Gurdwara management, you know them corrupt pradhans that you get these days, they were like, every time they saw Bhai Sahib, they're like, oh, please, aake kirtan karo. Aoji. Yeah? Because they knew that there's going to be a huge revenue that's coming in. So to understand, them positions didn't matter to Bhai Sahib. The positions are nothing, they're just a word. It was about serving the Sangat. Now, understanding, this is another really amazing incident within Bhai Sahib. I'm not going to go down this again because of the interest of time. I don't want to go down every single story. I want to talk about the Rakabganj because this is such an epicenter of Bhai Sahib's life. This is like the change, the big change that went from the saintly to then the soldier side. There was a Rakabganj Gurdwara. Does anyone know what the history behind the Rakabganj Gurdwara is? Any ideas? Hanji Penji? Something to do with Guru Tegh Bahadur's cease, but not his cease. Huh? Any ideas? Hanji? So Cease Ganj Sahib is where the cease was. It was taken to Punjab and cremated in Anandpur Sahib. But by the Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Maharaj's body was cremated at this individual's house. His name's on here somewhere. Lakhi Shah Vanjara. So Lakhi Shah Vanjara actually took Bhai Sahib's body, put it in his own house, and then set his entire house on fire to save the fact that Bhai Sahib's body was cremated. Sorry, not Bhai Sahib's, Guru Sahib's body was cremated, and he set the whole house on fire. And that is called Rakabganj. Now, Rakabganj was an important Gurdwara because it was by Baghel Singh, Baba Baghel Singh, that actually created the Gurdwara, and there's a long history behind it. I won't go down. But what was happening was the British came, and the British came and said, you know, we need the wall that kind of was bounding, the boundary of the wall that was touching the parliamentary buildings, we need to knock this wall down. Now you're thinking, it's only a measly little wall, what does it matter? But it was the principle. What they did was, it was 400 feet long, I think it was 2 feet wide, and 11 feet tall. I think that's what it was from memory. 11 feet tall, 2 feet wide, 400 feet long. They knocked it down, crushed it, and they turned it into a road. And the Singhs turned up. And within that, they did a morcha to say, look, no, we're not going to allow this wall to be broken down. Now, this is like the changing point for Bhai Sahib publicly. Because he, at that point, there was a chief Khalsa Diwan that had allowed the British government to buy the land, to then use that land to break down the bricks and use it. And the chief Khalsa Diwan were basically chapaluses of the government. Yeah, in very simple terms, in short, they were doing what the government wanted them to do. And the Randhir Singh and the Singhs kind of challenged them. And this challenge is what kind of gained Bhai Sahib's respect within the Sangat to say, look, he's standing up against the British government, which is a big thing. Even to the point where, you know, Sant Baba Gurbachan Singh Ji Pindrawale, he talks about Bhai Sahib in a poem. And this is the poem. This important moment was so important, is what Bhai Sahib was known for. He says, he writes this poem about Bhai Randhir Singh. He says, Sant Randhir Singh naam liv lai jina, Dilli mer Kabganj kand tahi jo farangi, Singh savdan jage sisa tai lavne, Bhai Randhir Singh cease den tak ges. They came to Delhi for that morcha to give their lives. There was 500 that set off. There's a long history behind what happened. Kand usrali fir nahi घबरावणे संत रणधीर सिंह नाम लिवलाई जिना कीर्तन अखंड करे मन त्रिपतावणे 17 साल जेल 17 साल 17 years 17 साल जेल कट्टी सरबलो बीच शके धन गुरु प्यारे मन तन रंग गावणे. Because Bhai Sahib also was Tarni of Sarbalo, where they ate only from Sarbalo. I'm going to come on to that in a second. So, you know, esteemed good Sikhs like Sant Gurbachan Singh Ji Pindrawale talks of Bhai Sahib in such a high esteem that he mentions him specifically in a poem as Sant Randhir Singh. Does anyone know what Akhand means? Akhand. Haji? Amazing. It was brilliant. It means non-stop. So when they say Bhai Sahib did Akhand Kirtan, when they sat down, sometimes their Kirtan lasted for hours and hours and hours. It's like they sat down and they you know, there's like, we're going to do Reras. Reras turned into a Ranswai. Ranswai turned into a Asadivar. Asadivar turned into a Diswela. Diswela turned into a Reras. Reras turned into a Ranswai. That happened for 36 hours in one occasion. There's a video that's going 36 hours non-stop Kirtan. Absolutely mental. I just think of that and my legs start hurting. Yeah? So, so you can understand that it's you know, it was because people, when they tuned into it, they forgot about the world around them. They went into this realm when they were listening to that Kirtan. So understanding that Kirtan is so important, that we sit that namras, that Kirtan, that we go in. Unfortunately, people like myself, you know, we should spend more time within the Kirtan. We get caught up in meetings and going here and doing this and talking or doing stalls and you know, in ourselves, we should make as much effort as we can. And within that, you need to be sitting in that Kirtan because you want to be there. Not sitting in there because you're proving to the next person, I'm sitting there because, you know, I'm not going to get up until he gets up, I'm better than him. That's what happens these days. Or there's a you know, a fashion that's going on at the moment that everyone goes and tries to sit at the front because they want to be on the YouTube videos. And it's a culture that we're setting that needs to be changed, because if kids are growing up to thinking, I want to sit at the front, I want to be at the front, it's setting a precedent that we need to kind of change to say, you should be sitting at the back, but the whole focus in the Kirtan should be you connecting to the Shabad, not about sitting at the front. So understanding the Gaddar movement. So this is kind of where things began to change. So the Gaddars were individuals that left Punjab, that left India, and they went to America to kind of set up there. And when they went there, I'm not going to go into the whole history, the Gaddars basically, they understood that freedom was actually in their own homeland. And they decided, because of few incidents that happened, that they're going to go back and they're going to fight. They started off the Gaddar press in the Stockton Gurdwara. They began a revolution. Does anyone know what Gaddar means? Yes? Nope. No, that's a Gadar. I used to always think that as a kid. Why do they call him Gaddar Babe, man? I thought it was Gadar Babe. Gaddar means rebellion. Yeah? So it was the rebellious Babe, the ones that rebelled. And they came back on this ship, the Komagatamaru, which is a Japanese ship. And when they came back, a lot of them were arrested from the docks because the intelligence had heard that they're coming back to revolt and to rebel. But a lot of them kind of went underground, and there's one famous name amongst these revolutionaries whose name was Kartar Singh Sarabha, Shaheed Bhai Kartar Singh Sarabha. Does anyone know how old Shaheed Bhai Kartar Singh Sarabha was when he got back into Punjab? He was actually running the press. He was one of the main people behind the rebellion, that they came back and said, you know, our homeland is ours, not the British that have come over and are looting us and killing us. Let's bring this revolt against the British. Does anyone know how old he was when he got back? He was about 17, they say. He was Shaheed when he was 19. So he was 17, then he got arrested when he was 18. He was Shaheed when he was 19. So 17-year-old young chap, he comes back sometimes in September, October, when the cause was preventing the British government from acquiring Rakabganj Gurdwara. So around the same time of Rakabganj Gurdwara incident, the Kamogatamaru, it gets back, and these Singhs of the Gaddars, you know, the Kartar Singh, Arjun Singh, these kind of people that are thinking about rebellion, they go into Punjab and they meet Bhai Randhir Singh. Now imagine, all of us in this room right now, we want to rebel. Yeah? We're going to go rebel. You're going to think, where do we start? And most of the time you think, where you're going to start? You're going to go find someone else that's rebellious. You're going to go, let's go find someone else that's rebellious. So when they got back into Punjab, the only person that they could see that was actually challenging the government at the time was Bhai Randhir Singh. So they got to Bhai Randhir Singh and they said, let's rebel together. And they created up this amazing plan of, you know what, we're going to rebel properly. And within that, on the 17th of February, I'm not going to go into all the details, there's like a long chapter on this in the huge book of how they rebelled, what they thought. They were going to take out a cantonment. They were going to go to a cantonment, they were going to take the Shastra from the cantonment, and they were going to start an armed struggle. That's very easy to say, but going, you know, all the way from one side of the world back into your own homeland, going underground to start a revolt, to think, you know what, we're going to get this British out and we're going to do it by an armed struggle. We can't do it legally because they own the law. We can't do it by appeals because they ain't going to listen to you. We can't do it by talking to them because they don't want to know. We can't do it by protest because we've done that. You know, Jallianwala Bagh was only a few years later where they tried to protest, they shot them down. The only way we're going to do it is by an armed struggle. So what they did was, they began this kind of plan, and it's actually really interesting. You know, Bhai Kartar Singh, Shaheed Bhai Kartar Singh Sarabha was meeting Bhai Randhir Singh weekly. They're having these meetings. Bhai Randhir Singh with a jatha of 60 people went to Firozpur cantonment, and what happened is they'd got a whiff because they'd had someone within their circles, either Kartar Singh's circles or the other circles, that was a spy and was telling everything to the British, that the 8 people that worked in this cantonment were going to be on the inside and actually help them loot the Shastra. Them 8 people were sent home. So when they, oh, it's tiny cup, isn't it? With these eight people, thank you, Paji. When these 8 people were sent home, Sardar Kartar Singh actually, he found out that this plan was foiled. So when Bhai Randhir Singh and his jatha of 60 people that were pretending that they were a part of a Bharat were walking towards this cantonment to kind of loot it and take the Shastra, he kind of said to them, just disperse, they already know. So Bhai Sahib kind of got out there, but unfortunately within the next day, Bhai Kartar Singh Srabha was arrested. And when Bhai Kartar Singh Srabha, there's a picture of him there, you can see, he was arrested, a young Sikh revolutionary, only 19, and became one of the most iconic figures of the movement. Now, I'm not doing it justice, kind of standing here and talking about Sardar Kartar Singh Srabha in such few words. Please go away and read up on his history. Put your hands up if you knew about Sardar Kartar Singh Srabha before you came here today. Kartar Singh Srabha? A lot of people. I want to ask you a question. How many of you guys knew about how Kartar Singh Srabha was close with Bhai Randhir Singh and they were planning together to loot the cantonment? How many people knew of that? Okay, so 24 people have voted. 96% people didn't know that fact, which is amazing. And when you read this book, and I say when, because I know you're all going to read it. When you read this book, there's an entire chapter on this the rebellious time, and understanding that Bhai Kartar Singh and Bhai Randhir Singh were working so closely together. Even myself, that I read this book 15 years ago, I'd forgot the point that these guys were working so closely together in rebelling. Unfortunately, Bhai Sahib was also arrested in the second Lahore conspiracy case. And in that, Bhai Sahib was sentenced to jail. And his prison ordeals are where the book actually comes about. So everything I've talked about to now is like the first 20, 30 pages, which is his pre-life. The rest of the page, the rest of the actual book is about Bhai Sahib's life. And they're his spiritual experiences in jail. And when you start looking at Bhai Sahib's jail, I created this very proudly. Didn't take me long at all. It did actually. This kind of timeline of Bhai Sahib's jail and the time he spent in each jail and the kind of experiences, you know, his torture, his, you know, in actual Multan prison was where he was force-fed beef. Anyone knows the story where they broke his tooth to force-feed him beef. Also, most of the jail chittiyan that this book here was written across these 2 jails. In this one, there's an amazing story of him meeting a Christian missionary that goes in to try to convert Bhai Sahib, and it's an absolutely phenomenal, the dialogue between them, and it's amazing. And then eventually at the end, Bhai Sahib's released 31 years. Just think about how long 17 years is. Bhai Sahib, a huge part of this that I haven't had time to actually cover, it was a rabbit hole that I went down, was Bhai Sahib Singhani, you know, Mata Kartar Kaur. Imagine, you know, they were married, he had, Bhai Sahib had 3 children, 1 child, around a month after he was arrested, his eldest daughter, 10 years old, 10-year-old little daughter, when she found out that dad's been arrested and he's going to jail for a long time, she passed away out of shock. She died out of shock. That's the kind of sacrifice that these things went through. So understanding Bhai Sahib was in jail for 17 years and Mata Kartar Kaur, how she was struggling for them 17 years, but she still remained in Chardi Kala. The whole incident I was reading today on my way here, where she found out that he's coming out of jail the night before, she didn't know, but she had a dream that he was home. And when someone ran to tell her that he's out of jail and he's coming home, she is like Maharaj prepared her, because if she'd known otherwise, she would have passed out. She would have passed out in excitement, and she was so happy. Could you imagine that feeling that your beloved husband comes home after 17 years of the struggle of being inside? So again, the Nagpur in Maharashtra, where Bhai Sahib was locked up in solitary confinement is an amazing story within this. It is absolutely phenomenal. Where this Christian missionary is going and doing surveys of jails, and he comes across this solitary confinement, tiny little cell, dark dungeon, no one around, and he says, who's that person in there sitting in a trance of samadhi and the sunlight is burning and blistering him? And they knock on the door, and Bhai Sahib's, opens his eyes and he says in a beautiful, nice, kind voice, how can I help you? The Christian missionary goes, I want to interview you for 10, 15 minutes. I'm doing interviews and checking prison conditions. He was in solitary confinement for 8 years. And when they questioned Bhai Sahib, he said that he was telling, they've got his records in there and he's discussing within the book, that he turns around and says to his colleague, this one's vibrant. He's glowing. He's in solitary confinement and he's glowing. His face is radiating. I can't actually look him in his eyes because he's radiating. That you can see from Bhai Sahib's, his aura in that picture, that he would have been exactly the way, and he was smiling and he was laughing. And then he said to this Englishman, what do you want to know? Why don't you come in the cell? And the Englishman actually couldn't walk into the cell because it was so hot. Bhai Sahib was sitting in that cell. So they took Bhai Sahib outside that cell to speak to him in the corridor. And he spoke to the staff, the warden that was looking after Bhai Sahib, and he said to Bhai Sahib, how long do people stay in solitary confinement? And they're like, maximum 1 month. How long has Bhai Sahib been in solitary confinement? 8 years. 8 years continuously. And he's like, how have you survived for 8 years, being by yourself? And Bhai Sahib goes, I'm not by myself. And he's like, huh? And he's like, no, I'm not by myself. And basically the prison warden was like, no, he is by himself. He is by himself. And they're like, no. He was like, no, I lock him up every night. And this argument started. And he's like, he doesn't look like he's a man that lies. So the Englishman asked him again, are you by yourself? He's like, no, I'm never by myself. I've always got someone with me. So they look at the cell, they're like, it's like a bloody 4 foot by 4 foot. Who's going to be hiding in there? So he's like, no, it doesn't make sense. Either you're lying or he's lying. Who's lying here? They have this long conversation. And Bhai Sahib said, I'm never alone. Gur mere sang sada hai nale. And that's when the Englishman understood, wow, this is someone else. This is something else. And just to experience, he does an experiment. He's like, you know what, I'm going to spend the night in this cell. And he got this bell to kind of ring the bell when he wants to kind of give up. And I think he only lasted an hour or so that he couldn't actually hack it in there. And he came out and he said to the jailers, these conditions need to be changed. You can't keep people like this. And Bhai Sahib was just laughing away. He was like, I'm not alone. I don't feel empty. I feel I'm in Chardi Kala. He's in ever bliss because he's within the world, but he's beyond the world. Jo Brahmande, so pinde, jo khoje, so pave. The entire universe is within. You could explore the universe within. You could keep someone in shackles, but if the mind is unlocked, if the mind is beyond, then what is the world? Man jeete, jag jeet. Conquer the world if you can conquer the mind. So understanding that, Bhai Sahib wrote all these books while he was in jail. And you can understand some of them were written outside and some of them are phenomenal. A lot of the stories, some of them are in Gurmat Prakash, Anhad Shabd, on Ditti. Anyone wants to read horror stories, on Ditti Dunya is the unseen world. Bhai Sahib talks about the spiritual realms, the Chitar Gupt, the jams, the demons, the unseen world, and everything that he could see while he was within and outside. All these are pustika, like the Maharaj's puja, Buddha puja. I think is they're in these. The smaller ones, Amrit Ki Hai, and they can all be found on that website, randhirsingtrust.org. Please do log in. You can read them online. It's there afterwards if you want to follow them on social media. I'm plugging them in there. And you can also follow and see what they're about. But kind of moving on, I'm not going to go in the interest of time into the deal in the kind of incident where Bhai Sahib actually spoke to Shahid Bhai Bhagat Singh. Bhagat Singh. And in the book, there's an entire chapter where he talks about this dialogue, which was one of the last dialogues that Bhagat Singh had before he was hung. And he talked about religion, he talked about dharam, he talked about repenting, talked about many, many things. And Bhai Sahib actually, talks of an honorable and a warrior, soldier-like person. It's a very, very interesting read within this book as well. Bhai Sahib later on, after jail, was one of the only people that was recognized by all 4 takhts with the title Bhai Sahib. So you normally hear people say Bhai Sahib Bhai Randhir Singh because he was given that title officially. So you can understand where all 4 takhts are giving him that title, are giving it for a reason of the caliber and the amount of things that he was, conferences that he organized, the rebellion that he led, the other things that he was involved in, you know, the helping kind of create the Panthik Ekta with the Raat Maryade, with the Gurdwara reform movement, with the Singh Sabha Lehr. Bhai Sahib was, his history is so intense that I'm not doing it justice, just standing there. I'm trying to go over it a little bit faster in interest of time and not kind of go through all the details. Really, this is like a 5-hour lecture or like a course on Bhai Sahib's life that you can actually go down and start reading. You'll be amazed. Bhai Sahib, later on in his years, when he came out, you know, his body was not as strong anymore, and because his body wasn't as strong anymore, he still attended the Kirtans, and the Kirtan Jatha was known as the Nirban Kirtan Jatha at that time, Nirban Kirtan Jatha, later now known as the Akhand Kirtani Jatha, which is these things that go around, that do non-stop Kirtan throughout the night, that sing from love, that try to make people connect with that universal formless energy, and that it was all about the love and the pyar and that rain of love that people feel and they're attuned and connect to that universal Lord. Bhai Sahib's last moments, again, very beautiful moments. You know, Bhai Sahib finished Amritullah 7 o'clock in the morning. Bhai Sahib knew it was their time to go. The son said, you know, shall I call a doctor? You're not feeling well. And Bhai Sahib said no. He folded his hands. He looked up towards Guru Sahib. He said, WhyGuru, 3 times, and then laid back and left his Quran. And still today, Bhai Sahib's, you know, his legacy lives on. His legacy lived on, you know, through his literature in his later years. If you read what Bhai Sahib's literature talks about, just some of the examples here, he talks about, you know, living under the rule of another. He talked about living in azadi or living in gulami. And he talked that to be a Sikh, you can't live under the rule of another. You know, many people nowadays will turn around and say, they'll be like, you know what, it's not about what's going on out there, it's about within. It's not about, you know, politics, you shouldn't be involved in politics, you shouldn't be involved in certain stuff. Well, Guru Nanak Maharaj established a city. Establishing a city is politics. So did Guru Nanak Dev Ji, so did Guru Ram Das Ji, so did Guru Arjan Dev Ji. Every single Guru established a city which has policies. Policies is politics. Understanding Rajniti is politics. Understanding the way the world works is politics. Understanding that is our duty as a Khalsa, as a Sikh. Because a Sikh isn't going to show himself as in the mountains like Siddh Ghost. A Sikh is going to be within society and change society. And how are you going to change society? By interacting with society. You can't change society if you think that's us and them. No, I'm too spiritual to speak to anyone else. No, that's not the way things work. People will go around and say, oh, you leave your politics away from our bhakti. You keep your politics out of our bhakti. How can you do bhakti when you don't understand the politics? Maharaj says, Raj bina ne dharm chale hai. Raj bina sab dale mile hain. To understand, if you want Sikhi to flourish, you need the Raj. Raj is important. And Guru Sahib, Bhai Sahib and Guru Sahib talk about this within certain kind of factions. And you can see within this, you know, Bhai Sahib talks about the treasure of Naam and those to be victorious in every field. When the reins of the path come to the hands of those who have earned the treasure of Naam, Naam being so important, those who are imbued with the love are so-called brave. So Bhai Sahib's talking about Naam and Naam being so important within this. And then also talks about the Gurmukh, that the Khalsa nation, there is no other way for the oppressor, the oppression of the oppressed throughout the world to cease. The resolution for all ages will happen this manner when the Naam imbued Sikhs sprout out like mushrooms within the Khalsa nation. They will sprout out the power of Naam and Nidan, warrior-like, supreme and expansive Khalsa will then take. So he's talking about Naam, but he's also talking that within Naam, you know, Khalsa needs to be talking about the Khalsa nation. You know, Jabla Khalsa Rehe Niyara, within Bhai Sahib talks about Raj Karega Khalsa. It's not just a thing to be read, it's something to be worked towards. You know, we can't, this is like, you know, say Bhai Sahib was against the British. He wasn't just against the British, he was later on against the Indian nation and what the Hindus were doing to the Sikh. He clearly talks about that in his later studies as well. Bhai Sahib talks about, you know, the Gurmat deficit because of people that are saying, no, it's fine, we're happy to live in the Gulami of Hindus. And Bhai Sahib says, you know, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, those who say Sikhs emerged from Hindus, are themselves Hindu and supporters of the Hindu community. The Hindu community is subjugated nation which has been a slave from its very beginning. So he talks about, the word Hindu itself actually derives from the word slave from Persian and Arabic text. Hindu meant someone that was a taxpayer. The actual word for a Hindu is Arya Samajist. Anyone that go find the definition of the word Hindu, it actually means slave and taxpayer. But Bhai Sahib kind of talks about all these principles within. Again, this is a very important quote from Bhai Sahib. He says, "Assi anyay raj di raj bhakti nahi karni te nyayakari raj vich gardi nahi karni." परंतु जिस राज ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਧਰਮ ਕਰਮਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਧਰਮ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਰਾਜ ਮਦ ਦੇ ਧੱਕੇ ਅਤੇ ਢਿੰਗੋ ਜੋਰੀ ਨਾਲ ਅਨਿਆਈ ਹੱਥ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੋਣ ਉਸ ਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਦੇ ਆਸਰੇ ਜਰ ਉਖੇੜ ਦੇਣੀ ਹੈ ਭਾਈ ਰਣਧੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ. So basically says wherever there is that tyrant government, we will uproot it, and only by uprooting that tyrant government will your dharm flourish. So you can start understanding Bhai Sahib was this spiritual being that loved and oozed and talked about this energy and Bani and Naam, but he was also very, very much about the soldier side, telling the Khalsa, even in his later years when he couldn't fight himself. These are all writings of Bhai Sahib later on in life where he's talking about a Khalsa can't live oppressed. A jungle kadi pinjare ch band kar do, oh sher nahi rehanda. He can't be himself if he's gulam within a pinjara. And Khalsa was made to be free. Now Bhai Sahib's Miri Piri philosophy didn't just stop at Bhai Sahib. Bhai Sahib cultivated and created the next Sikh of Khalsa to start feeling the certain way. Now, not everyone did. A lot of people around Bhai Sahib said, you know what, we can't go to jail, we can't sacrifice ourselves. We like the nice Kushti life, we like going home and going to sleep on our nice warm beds. A lot of people believe that Sikhi and Bhakti is waking up in a £500,000 house, nice and heated shower, and doing a bit of Amritullah, and that's it, I've got Sikhi. No, Sikhi is about struggle. If you've got a nice Kushti life, no Guru Sahib went through nice Kushti lives. Every single one was a struggle. If you're not in a struggle, that means you're shutting yourself off from a reality. The reality is, if there's evil in this world, you've still got work to do. So understanding, Bhai Jeevan Singh was a very close associate of Bhai Randhir Singh. And he was again that Miri Piri, that saint soldier. You can see him. He was, anyone that goes, and I think Penji Diljit Kaur is going to do a talk on Bhai Jeevan Singh in a few weeks. Anyone that sees Bhai Jeevan Singh and knows, listens to his voice, was pure bliss, pure anand, pure love, everything, humility. He would touch people's feet if anyone got angry with him. He would do everything out of love, nothing. He was such a lovely person. Someone came and gave him a watch and, a really expensive Rolex, and he put it on his wrist and he says, he took it off and give it to the next person. Someone would say to Bhai Sahib, thoda chola bahut sona, and he'd take it off and just give it to him. And he'd come home with his banana on, and his wife would say, Fir kis nu chola deta? Yeah? I'm not wearing a banana today, so please no one say that to me after this. So,
About the Kanda as well. At every dance, they'd have a couple in their pocket.
they'd have couple, Khande, and they'd just say, there's so many stories of Bhai Jeevan Singh. There was a Sajdari Munna Sikh walking down the street, and Bhai Sahib was walking, he bumped into Bhai Sahib, he goes, oh, teri deek sigi. Bhai Sahib took his dastar off, tied it around his head, it tucked it in right nicely, he goes, hun Lani, and he walked off. That Singh after that day never took his dastar off. What a dastar his whole life. Yeah. Bhai Randhir Singh gave Bhai Jeevan Singh. Oh, to you? Oh, wow, amazing. Bhai Sahib there was close associate Bhai Jeevan Singh. Bhai Joga Singh's in the room also. Spent a lot of time with Bhai Jeevan Singh, many, many years. Has hundreds of stories. But Bhai Jeevan Singh, in terms of his spiritual life, I remember in Bradford, there's a Gurdwara Singh Sabha, there's a middle floor of this factory. We used to be scared because you used to hear screams and all sorts. There's a fire that happened in that building and people died in that fire. We never knew as kids, otherwise we'd never gone there. But Bhai Jeevan Singh would go into random corners and do part. And then later on we found out Bhai Sahib was actually getting rid of the souls that was trapped. There's so hundreds of stories of Bhai Jeevan Singh. But did you know that Bhai Jeevan Singh also, every protest, wanted to join the Sangharsh? He actually went to the Babbar Singhs and said, you know what, I want to fight with you guys, I want to fight with you guys. And they'd say, Bhai Sahib, look, you're better suited elsewhere, you know. But he would, could you imagine Bhai Jeevan Singh saying that? Do you know, Bhai Joga Singh will tell you, Bhai Sahib ardasa karde sige? Hai. He did the ardasa for a lot of the big actions. You know, the Singhs that went and did Sodde, Bhai Jeevan Singh did the ardasa for them. So he was the Ardasiya Singh. So you can start seeing that Miri and the Piri, the saint soldier, not just Bhai Jeevan Singh, Gyani Molak ji. Every morcha that there is, these are the people that did Sangat Apayar and T Singh. And they carried that on. Not just like, oh, you know what, protests are a waste of time, forget that. You know what, I'm going to sit home and do bhakti. They never did that. They always went out there. Jathedar Bhai Raghbir Singh, the same. The Jathedar Khan Ki Nijata, every morcha he was at, stood up for the Sangharsh. Shame that the next generation ain't standing up to that. Because at the morcha you don't see them. But these elders, they were always there. They were at the forefront. But in their Naam Bani, they were pak. They were solid in the Naam Bani. And the same, Bhai Jeevan Singh and these Singhs then inspired the next generation, Bhai Fauja Singh, who was lean in his Naam Bani. Anyone that would tell you about the Khalsa form routine was waking up at 2, was Asa Diwar, was Nitnem, was Sukhmani Sahib, was Naam throughout the day. Then it was teaching them about world politics, teaching them about Sangharsh, teaching them about Shastra Vidya, teaching them about Rajniti, was teaching them. It was the complete package of that Khalsa that we've been talking about. And they went and attained Shahidi and inspired the next generation, who wasn't just Sant Ji and them Singhs, it was a guerrilla warfare. The Babbars, all the Babbar Singhs, the Babbar Khalsa Singhs came from that ideology that started off from Guru Gobind Singh Ji, that started off from Guru Nanak Dev Ji, where Guru Nanak Dev Ji challenged the tyrant ruler Babar tu Jabariyan, stood up against tyranny. That was politics. Why do you need to call out the politics? When Maharaj says, Kutta Raj bahaliye, kyun chakki chatte, apan hati apani jad aap upatte. That was Guru Nanak Dev Ji talking politics, talking against the rulers at the time. That's politics, is it not? If you don't care about what's going on in the world, apni bhakti karo. But Guru Nanak Maharaj did that. That same line continued on and on and on to the very Singhs and to the Khalsa here today. It still lives on today. It's not going to stop. That Khalsa can never be, because Khalsa always existed. Khalsa was Pargat. Pargatio Khalsa, Paramatma ki mauj, odi mauj naal Pargat hoya. It was always here and it's always going to be here. Because there's no one aaj tak jammya nahi Khalsa nu mitaun wala. Koi jammya nahi. The problem we have is we start beginning to think it's our fight, it's my fight, I'm fighting against oppression, I'm fighting against tyranny. And that's where we forget. That's where other dol jande hain. That's when we start thinking, you know what, yeah, I can't do this. They've got tanks, they've got billions of pounds, they've got resources, they've got everything. How is a person like me is going to fight against oppression that's going on there? Do you know why I fail there? Because I think it's my fight. It's not my fight. It's his fight. We're just soldiers. We shouldn't care about the victory. We should care about the fight. Why? Because fateh ho diya. Vaheguru ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru ji ki fateh. Fateh ho diya. When I start thinking it's my fight, then I start doling. When I say Satguru mera taan ni taan, Satguru maan ni maan, Satguru is the weak's wings, he gives us strength. When I start thinking it's him, fir sade more ki topa, tanka, soldiers, army, fir Maharaj Kida Thap De Pathshai Lashkar hoye swad, that the entire, an ant with the Guru's Thapra can take out an entire army. So it's us that when we start believing it's his fight, that we're Guru's Khalsa and the Khalsa is the one that's fighting, fir dolda nahi banda. ਜਦੋਂ ਮਾਂ ਪਿਓ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਣ, ਜਦੋਂ ਦਸਮੇਸ਼ ਪਿਤਾ ਸਿਰ ਤੇ ਖੜਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਕੀ ਡੋਲਣਾ. I'll tell you one quick story here. There's a Khadku Singh in the 80s. His house got raided early 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm just giving you a chalak. This is worldly mother father. We say, Tu mera pita, tu hai mera pata, tu mera bandab, tu mera prata, tu mera rakha sabni thai. This guy was sitting in his house was raided, he'd been put in handcuffs, he knows he's going to get taken away from the police, he's going to be tortured, he's going to be killed. This is what happened in them days. He was scared for his life. He got picked up, 5 or 6 army officers around him, they took him out into the gully and that's it. I'm never seeing my mom and dad again, I'm not seeing anything again. He was in the thick of the movement. One thing made everything bearable. One thing. His mom came out into the gully and she patted him on the back and she goes, Dolli na, dasmesh pita tere naal hai, tu Guru Gobind Singh da Singh hai. Everything, just forgot everything. Was tortured for 30 days, legs ripped open, nails pulled out, electrocuted, and it was bliss. क्योंकि माँ ने तापड़ा देता। सूरमे कित्थों पैदा होंदे आ? माँ दे कुख चों। जिससे the mother has so much influence on the trajectory of a family and an individual. जिन्हां ने टोटे टोटे करा के गलां च हार पवाए, सवा मन पीसे पीसे खन्नी खन्नी गुजारा कीता, is because of them mothers that we stand tall today, because they gave them sacrifices and we forget that. सिੱਖੀ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ? ਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੁੱਖ ਚੋਂ। ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮਾਂ ਨੇ ਭਗਤੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੂਰਮੇ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋਣੇ ਜਾਂ ਭਗਤ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋਣੇ। It's very important. You want the next generations. How did the Jewish get their Raj back? A mother would say to a Jewish kid going to sleep, whisper in his ear, "Sonja putter, Jerusalem ch milde hain." They set that vision, they planted that seed in their minds. How many of our mothers say, "Sonja putt, Azad Punjab ch milde hain, Khalistan ch milde hain, apne desh ch milde hain." Those people that gave thousands of lives for them to be today. And that chaluk of them sings, you know the story that I told you about, the locking the eyes? That was this saint here, the saint, the Bhagat, the one whose arm brushed, Sheed Bhai Nok Singh's arm brushed by someone's ear and they heard WhyGuru 1,000 times. They went into Bismarck. That was Sheed Bhai Nok Singh Babbar, this saintly soldier. That thing of the Khalsa, the Naam Bani Rasiya Gursikhs, but the soldiers within them still lived to our generation. They still live today. They are alive today. They ain't going to go out there and say, yeah, we do bhakti and we're fighting. It works in a different way today. But they are still alive. And you can read that within their poems. This is a poem that Bhai Fauja Singh wrote. This is a poem that Sheed Bhai Nok Singh wrote. And within that, you can see the chaluk of that Khalsa. ਜਿਹਦਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਨਾ ਘਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਨੰਗ ਨਾ ਸਕੇਗਾ ਕੱਜ ਕੋਈ, ਜਿਉਂਦੇ ਜੀ ਮਰ ਗਈ ਜ਼ਮੀਰ ਜਿਸ ਦੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਛੱਟਣ ਨਾ ਛੱਡੇ ਨਾ ਛੱਜ ਕੋਈ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਹਰਮੰਦਰ ਤੋਂ ਤੋੜ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮਰਨ ਨਾ ਲੱਭੇ ਨਾ ਭੱਜ ਕੋਈ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਅਣਖ ਦਾ ਬਦਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈ ਸਕਦਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਜਿਉਣ ਦਾ ਰਹੇ ਨਾ ਹੱਜ ਕੋਈ, ਜਿਸ ਦੀ ਪੱਤ ਨੂੰ ਪੈ ਜੇ ਹੱਥ ਲੋਕੋ ਉਹਦੀ ਮਿੱਟੀ ਸ਼ਰੀਕ ਵੀ ਰੋਲ ਦਿੰਦੇ, ਭੇਡਾਂ ਕੁੱਟ ਖਾ ਕੇ ਧੌਣਾ ਸੁੱਟਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਸਿੰਘ ਕੁੱਟ ਖਾ ਕੇ ਹੱਲੇ ਬੋਲ ਦਿੰਦੇ. You can see the power in his words. This is poetry. And Sheed Bhai Fauja Singh, I'm going to finish here. I want to show you a quick video on Sheed Bhai Fauja Singh, which I believe is perfect. And this is the last thing that you guys will see. Can we hit the lights?
ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ਖਸੀਅਤ ਸੀਗੀ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਤਿਆਗ ਹੀ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਬਸ ਕੁਝ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ। ਤੇਰੀ ਅਮਰ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਨੂੰ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਮਨ ਬਚ ਕਰਮ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਿਭਾ ਦਿਆਂਗੇ, ਤਾਮ ਜਵਾਨੀ ਜਾਏ ਦਾਦ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਲਿਖੇ ਪੱਥ ਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਲਗਾ ਦਿਆਂਗੇ, ਬਸਤਾ ਤੋਂ ਦੇ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਰੱਖੀ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਰੱਖੀ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਰੱਖੀ ਜੀ ਬਾਲ, ਬਸਤਾ ਤੋਂ ਦੇ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਰੱਖੀ ਜੀ ਹੋਤਾ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ ਕੋਲ ਘੁਮਾ ਦਿਆਂਗੇ। ਤੇਰੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਨੂਰ ਦੇ ਨਿਵਾਸ ਤੇ ਕੇ ਜੀ ਅਵਗਣ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਗਵਾ ਦਿਆਂਗੇ, ਮੇਰੇ ਰੱਖੀ ਮਿਹਰ ਬਾਣ ਮੇਰੇ ਜੀ ਬੰਦੋ ਬੰਦ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਟਾ ਦਿਆਂਗੇ, ਨਾਮ ਨਿਧਾਨ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੇਰਾ, ਨਾਮ ਨਿਧਾਨ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੱਸੋ ਦਿਸ਼ਾ ਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਲਾ ਦਿਆਂਗੇ। ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੇਰਾ, ਬੁਝ ਰਹੀ ਜੋਤ ਜੋ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜਾਪਦੀ ਏ ਜੀ ਖੂਨ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਗਾ ਦਿਆਂਗੇ, ਮੱਤ ਨੂੰ ਮੇਟ ਕੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਦਾਤਾ ਜੀ ਤੇਰੀ ਜੋਤ ਚ ਜੋਤ
मिला देंगे सूरत तेरी अवतारी रीत सुंदर रीत सुंदर रीत सुंदर तो सूरत तेरी अवतारी रीत सुंदर राहु के तुम रोक चमका देंगे मिट रहे निशान जो धर्म वाले जी लोग छुप के असी प्रगटा देंगे तेरी ना खालसा बोलदा है जी वाज अंदरली बाहर सुना देंगे अमृत रूप सिखी है अमर कर दी अमर कर दी अमर कर दी जी अमृत रूप सिखी है अमर कर दी जी के साथ स्वासां दे नाल निभा देंगे जी के साथ स्वासां दे नाल निभा देंगे जी के साथ स्वासां दे नाल निभा देंगे बुझ रही जोत जो सानू जापदी है जी खून अपने नाल जगा देंगे अपने नाल जगा देंगे
The fight still lives on. Bhai Singh and his soch, which was inspired by Randhir Singh, whose philosophy is the Khalsa, which was created by Guru Nanak Maharaj and established by Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj, still lives and fights on today. That fight will never stop. As long as there's a Nishan Sahib Chul there on this planet, that fight will continue. And every single one of you are a part of that fight. Every single one of you are still a part of that revolution. Understand your duty. Get naam tari. Understand that connection. Naam de naal judo, bani pado. Understand what it is to be a Sikh and connect within. And once you find that connection within, serve the panth. Give what you can back. Become that surma, become that saint of Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj. And there's nothing on this planet that can stop the Khalsa from flourishing. If I've said anything today that's hurt anyone's feeling that's been wrong, please forgive me. Please also do ardas for someone like myself that stands up here, very easy to talk, very easy to give it, that I know all these things. I'm nothing that I said that a Khalsa should be. I'm absolutely nowhere close. Do ardas for me ke Maharaj vi sade Sikhi ke saswasala si nib jaiye, that we can fight till the very end. ਭੁੱਲਾ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਦੀ ਖਿਮਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ
ਗੱਜ ਕੇ ਜੇ ਕਰੋ ਫਤਿਹ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਨਾਲ ਹੋ ਜਾਵੇ ਸਿੱਧਾ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੰਨੂ ਪਾਵੇ
ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ